By the way, another reason why TV had this unbelievable ascendancy, starting with The Sopranos and all the way through now with streaming. I mean, the showrunner is king, the writer is king in great Breaking Bad, Ozark. I mean, these shows are brilliant, and even though I'm sure they get notes and so forth, there is a kind of you have to have a vision driving it to make it consistent and make it work. You get one shot with a movie. You don't get a bunch of shots when you don't get a season of 10 episodes where one of them can really shine and it can be like, okay, that's where when I saw the Red Wedding on Game of Thrones, I'm like, okay, now it's next level, like storytelling. And obviously that came from the books, but you get one shot with the movie. You got to get it just right.
But I'm just thinking about right now is how you don't think Marvel would have looked at the movie we made and said, we should talk to these guys?
Maybe.
I can tell you this is that
maybe
if you, I believe this, but I haven't talked to James Gunn about it, but I believe that, my 2 cents is why Guardians is so successful is because if you know anything about James Gunn, he is the fan for which they're making that movie for.
Right.
And he knows things that only a super curated fan would know.
Yeah.
And he's an encyclopedia of comic books.
Yeah.
But also, I think the beauty of that movie is that Marvel probably obviously did, but I don't know if Disney knew. How can you give notes on something you don't even know what it is? It's kind of like, whoa, we don't know what this is, so we kind of have to let them do it. So Kevin Feige is also like James. I don't know him at all, but Kevin Feige seems like a guy that is super knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And so it's like a guy running that world, loving that world, knowing that world.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Feige is a master storyteller. I mean,
100%. Marvel movies are great movies.
Right.
That with a superhero backdrop.
With a superhero backdrop.
They're
exactly.
super rich.
I never read I read
at all.
DC. Yeah, I never read Marvel, but I went to see like Doctor Strange. I'm like, okay, great movie. Like great setup. Surgeon who loses use of his hands or whatever in a car crash in the opening, and the execution of that opening is fantastic in that movie. Same in Guardians, same in Thor Ragnarok, same in so many of them. So he understands how to get you emotionally hooked in a film, and then he understands tone. He understands why do we bring in a different director to alter the tone and to have a slightly different style. So these aren't all the same movie.
Exactly. And so why my show, even though it wasn't huge, why it worked is because it was nothing like the network had or ever had.
Right.
So they didn't know. They kind of gave notes, but once they came to tape night and they saw the laughs, they kind of laid off, and the ratings were good enough. But they didn't know. It wasn't like a typical sitcom. Add this arc, take this character out.
Right.
Our problem was... Besides
the expectation, it was the writing in the back.
Yes, besides not having the right protection for the filmmakers.
Right.
I'm sorry. That's what I believe. And also is that they were measuring it against something, and all we were taking was basically the green from the mask and its ability to transform. That's it.
Yeah.
The expectation. So they go, oh, we know it's like this, so let's do this. Well, you can't get Jim Carrey, so we'll get Jamie Kennedy. That's what we're not making. We're not making a standalone one-person film who goes absolutely berserk and everyone watches them. This is like, I did it a little bit.
Right.
But Alan had great moments.
Right.
The baby had great moments. The dog, like you said, the set deck. We were all trying to make it. It was a bigger...
It was an ensemble.
100%. It was a big wheel we were making.
Yeah. And I got the feeling from this cut, and there's some other footage and stuff, but I did like what you did with this. It was your own interpretation, and it was funny and fun and clever, and when she's kind of turned on by you, when you're at the end, before you jump into the car with her, and she sees you morph into, masked Tim. She's kind of got that look on her face. It's just right. I mean, you really get the feeling like
there's a couple moments I was like a little bigger. I could cut around that, but other than that, like I was like the father version of the mask. Like when I put the mask on, I was like this father.
Right.
But you kept more of my different voices here. Maybe we would have changed some in the thing. Yeah. We were still playing with it.
Yeah.
Before it got taken away. But the dance sequence is. Do you know that people low key? Do you know what that term low key means?
Yeah.
They love the dance sequence. It's on the internet. Now some people try to hate on it, but they clip it.
Wait, what is this? So tell me again.
When I say, yo, that's low key fire, you know what that term means? It's like, it's great.
Right.
So people low key love the dance sequence.
Okay.
Because basically, and I got to go back to the dance sequence, but the dance sequence in the movie is more than it was in our movie. In our cut, we just love, it's more layered than it is in the movie, correct?
Yes.
That's okay. So that's I loved it more.
Right.
And I was proud of it. I'm like, ooh, this is good. Where the other one was chopped again.
Yeah.
And I worked so hard on that for so many weeks, months, and preparing, and it showed different characters. It was quick. It was song and all this stuff, and it worked.
Yeah.
Again, it was its own
and by
thing.
the way, I don't know if you remember this, but when you recorded the original rap for the first part of
that rap is in. You put the rap in.
Right.
The rap wasn't in.
Right. So
I was like, oh my God, my rap's in.
But here's the thing. Remember EMI said we could release this? Remember that? I don't know if you remember this, but EMI said we could release this song that Jamie rapped to. And what happened was the lawyers at New Line realized right before we were going to go do it that the rights owner had penciled something into the contract saying you can't change the lyrics for this part. And we had to change it at the last second. And we just, it wasn't as good. I remember you did it. And I remember listening to it. I remember being at the studio at Fox Studios in Australia, in Sydney, listening to it and going, oh, this is pretty good. Like, I like this. Like, people may want to listen to this. And
the rap and my turntable cheeks. Yeah. It's in there. I'm like, oh my God, but with the rap, you're right. And that's what I said the Will Smith moments, because he's lovable, family friendly rap. He has skill, but he's not trying to be so hard in the movie raps.
Right.
And that had that I was inspired by him. And it's good. Damien Elliott's so good. And I'm like, you're right. Like, that could have been on the radio as a fun version. And let me finish, and then I got to get this out because I'll forget it, is that what's crazy is this wasn't a movie where moms could take their kids and drop them off, which it should have been. But the movie could have been moms sit with the kids, and they would have liked it too. It had a very DreamWorks-esque element to it. I'm not saying it's Shrek, but there was jokes for adults and jokes for kids and visuals for the whole family.
Right.
And it was very much like babysitter friendly, as they say.
Right.
And then we have this, and we're doing the movie, and I'm thinking about how we took the rap. Oh, wait. I forgot my thought. Oh, something about what I was going to say. Damn, dude.
I don't think I don't remember if this is in the film, but you remember when you're walking around giving a tour to the kids in the turtle suit?
Yeah.
I don't think the thing where she says, deadpan, someone should make soup out of him is in the movie. And then they push you on your back and you're flailing like a turtle. I don't think that section is in the movie. I think we cut from that. We cut that out and we jumped right to you walking up saying, I wish I could be on the second floor, but it wasn't, you needed to set that up. Like you said, the joke doesn't, and it's in reverse as well, right? You need to set that up. So that didn't work as well. And then in this version of the movie, when you walk up to pitch to Daniel Moss, the boss, I feel your anxiety and I feel the disparity. He's at the top of the hierarchy. You're the supplicant, trying to get this job, and I felt that emotionally in your performance. So that when you do go in after the party, that reversal where he's like, how would you like to be on the second floor? That really plays. And then that sets up your conflict. I don't know if you remember what happens right after that is you're looking for the mask because you're thinking that's the only way I'm going to be able. I mean, it's kind of a metaphor for addiction in a weird way, right? It's in some way like I can't perform unless I got this mask. I can't, you know, actors who end up taking drugs, right? Because they feel like they need to be in some way, be able to perform at some level and, be able to keep it at that level. They need whatever they need the drug for. So, you then go and you look for this mask and you talk to the dog and it's funny, the stuff you say. And I don't think all that dialogue is in the movie. And then Tanya comes home and you're telling her the good news at the same time as she's telling you what to her is the good news. And those two things conflict instantly because you're like, she's pregnant. You just told her you've been moved to the second floor. She's telling you she's pregnant. You're not ready for that. And you don't even remember how that happened because you were in a fugue state because you were wearing the mask the night before. So it's a pretty strong, and all of those moments, those key moments where the plot is being hung by this very strong spine kind of got lost and got either dissipated or hacked away altogether, like you said. So
hacked away.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it now and how if that movie was released, there's just so much craftsmanship in it that it would have, even if it didn't work at the box office, which I think it would have had a better chance. Mm-hmm. With the right marketing. And I was right on my way to go to that. Again, I wasn't just me. I had a lot of help.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, look at the bucket. I mean, it was all of that.
Yeah.
And if that movie came out like that as a family adventure type of movie, it could have opened.
Yeah.
It could have opened.
No, it absolutely would have. It just had to be.
And people like the people that like you in this business, like the Ron Howards,
right,
and the Spielbergs, they would have saw what it is.
Yeah.
Like, we just, and then I was another thought I had about it, but.
Well, yeah, the feeling I got was the same that you got. Was like, okay, well, I just like, okay, that's kind of painful. Move on to the next thing, right? And that's kind of life. But you're right; it does lift the weight. The weight is, am I crazy or is there something good here?
No, I don't want to just move on.
Okay.
I want redemption.
Redemption.
And I look at Clint Eastwood now, who's 91. And still starring in movies, I'm going, okay, so I got 40 years, maybe with medicine.
Right.
Because it took some years.
Yeah.
It took some years from my journey.
Yeah.
It took years from your journey. I believe that you and I, and you tell me if I'm lying and say, shut up, Jamie. I believe we're very undervalued assets.
Yeah, look, I mean.
I know your skill set.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I know your heart. You're a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And I know I'm a good guy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you don't get the chance, it's like so many people got chances. I'm thinking of other movies that I was up for at this time. I'm not going to name them that were hits, but they just don't have the craftsmanship.
Right.
And it's just,
yeah. There's an ambition there.
Huge ambition.
Yeah. And
when you say Tim Burton, you're right. Like, not saying it's Tim Burton.
It's different, but it has a...
It has a comic book feel of... Obviously, when Christopher Nolan got into the game, comic books became a much more different, dark psyche, which was incredible. I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
But this took that fun element of like Tim Burton and made it a little adventure. I mean, The Mask essentially is a superhero.
Right.
He is.
Right.
We were early.
Right.
And the car is a superhero.
Right.
And I didn't even know this. And the Dark Horse people are so cool. Like, they were behind us. And Jim Carrey was cool. Like, he was like, make it your own.
Right.
Did you know that the original source material of The Mask, do you know what it is?
Yeah, the comics.
But do you know what it is? Do you know the tone of it?
Yeah, I mean, well, go ahead. I mean, you can describe it.
You do know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not what
my son is like an insane fan.
It's dark.
Yeah.
The source material is horror. It's about a guy who finds a mask and does despicable things. Mm-hmm. And I kind of forgot that. And I thought if we really wanted to go a different way, but you know, you're much more of a big adventure filmmaker. I mean, you could do anything,
right?
But you know, I think at that time you were probably doing that and I was too, but we could have, from my Scream background, that would have been a total departure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one way.
Right.
The other way is, do you remember when we were going to make the movie and it was going to be me doing like that, like a poster of different characters, and I would go into different situations and this character would pop up and this character. Yeah. I would say like Beverly Hills Cop, but instead I'm the Mask doing a different character instead of Eddie Murphy just using a voice. But we had to change it. And then we were very happy with this script that we had. Right. It was our bones. And we said, okay, it's going to be a little bit more. And then we both got on board with that.
Yeah.
But here's what I wanted to say. I did a movie, and then I want to ask you about your kid. I did a movie with a bunch of kids, and there's a kid named Josh Peck, who's, you know, a big star, and Orlando Brown, who's also really known, and a bunch of kid stars. It was called Max Keebles. But that's not really about the director in this one. Right. We made this kids movie at Disney.
Yeah. And
it was like, dude, it's 20 years ago. They don't make $12 million kid comedies anymore.
Right.
And we make the movie and it does okay. It does like 16 million at the box office. It only costs like 12, whatever. It wasn't a hit, but it wasn't a total bomb and like plays forever. Now it's on Disney Plus. All of the kids, when I'm shaved and everything, I have like 20-year-olds going, ice cream man, ice cream man. Like I have this new
generation of
100%. Like I call it the Pixie box sets of like.
I have that with cats and dogs actually.
Yes. And now, so we made Son of the Mask.
I actually have that with Son of the Mask.
Well, that's what I want to tell you.
Yeah.
We made Son of the Mask for who we thought Son of the Mask could be a 4-quadrant movie. And I watched your cut and that's a 4-quadrant movie.
4-quadrant movie.
4-quadrant movie for anyone listening. Yeah. I equate it to a 42nd Street Sony SDS theater. You can go there at 1 a.m. I saw Men in Black there, and I was like at 1 a.m. and it was just packed with like rappers and Wall Street heads and dudes on a date and Latinas, and everyone loved it. And I'm like, this movie's going to make $1 gajillion.
Yeah.
The other place like that is City Walk, where you could see every walk of life, gay, straight, black, white, everything. And it's like, oh, when that works there, those are the 2 theaters I judge movies is at. Movies is. So I'm looking at our movie right now and I'm thinking 4-quadrant and I'm thinking, well, we didn't get to make that.
Right.
So they made it for the kids. They go just literally, it was almost, the movie that was released was like anime on crack.
Right.
It was like live action anime. Like even Japanese anime people are like, that's a lot, right?
Right.
And now those kids grew up. I have stans. You know what stans are? They're super fans that go, I love Son of the Mask. I know people. And all the adults who hate it, which I go, you're 40. You hated a kid's movie? Like, what? Get a life together.
Right,
like,
right.
But like these 17, 18, 15-year-old kids are like, I saw it when I was 2. I saw it was fun. It raised me.
Yes.
So it did work. It was the zany cartoon insanity for which they were raised on video games or now playing Fortnite.
Right.
So it has a big base now.
Yeah, that's actually true. I've come across that. I came across that for Cats and Dogs, but I was
And people
surprised
know
to come
you
across
did it.
that for Son of the Mask.
Why? Why were you surprised?
Like my kids who are like 18, 19, whatever, they have friends and they're like, I love that movie. And their friends are erudite and articulate and they're scholars and they're going to college and they're whatever. And they like, I loved that movie. And I think what happened was what still came through was the homage and the love letter to that style and the love letter to that approach that just sort of even came through despite all the other stuff that didn't work, the layers that didn't work. But look, I mean, it's hard to say what will last, but when you imbue something with all that care and love and craftsmanship, the surface level, when you throw a ton of marketing money at it to release it as a big movie, there's a certain level of expectation. When you discover this thing on cable one day, which you've never heard about because it never got a lot of great reviews or anything, and you see that there's all this sort of attention and care and love and detail put into it's like looking at a train set that someone made or something, like whoa, you know, like with every wheel and every, you know, every train track, you know, perfectly with every bolt and everything,
Yes.
like perfectly executed.
Yes.
It's sort of like when kids see that stuff, they dig it, you know, and then they absorb it, and it's very what's the word, stylistically very evocative.
Exactly. Stylistically very evocative. And what I want to say is this. I've worked with auteurs, and you're one of them. And look, Romeo and Juliet, 25 years old.
Yeah.
It's still there and holds a mark, made a mark.
Yeah.
Okay. Enemy of the State.
Yeah. Great movie.
Made a mark.
Yeah.
This, but with its own style. I'm just talking about style. Scream.
Yeah.
Made a mark. Its own style. I believe if we were to get our cut, and obviously we cannot get past the Jim Carrey thing.
Right.
But if we were to release that craftsmanship cut, people would see its own style, and it would leave a mark that we wanted.
Right. That's the redemption you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, buddy, I know we got a lot to talk about. We're going to have to do this again.
Okay.
But I want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you, it's good because I couldn't tell because I wasn't really looking at you when you were watching it.
Because I was watching it.
Yeah. But I was like, you know, you got the meter running. Like, how many, is he laughing? Is he enjoying? Is he caught up in it? Is he, and you know, you never know when you're.
I was engrossed.
Yeah.
Taking memories.
Yeah.
Thinking of all the glasses of red wine I had at night, talking the trailer, going, how do you think that scene went? What happened today? Hold on, the baby quit in the middle of the scene. Remember they took the baby in the middle of the scene? I'm like, you stole my co-star. Wait, your daughter, you watched it with her. I need that story.
Listen,
because your daughter
18.
was on this set.
She was on the set as a 1-year-old.
As a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
And she's so smart.
And she's smart, and she's written like 2 novels, and she's just started college. And
where's she going?
So Kenyon College. I don't know if you know Kenyon in Ohio. It's Kenyon Review is like a famous literary review, and so it's a great writing school. And
so your daughter is like,
she's writing.
She's gonna go deep in the novel.
I think novels and movies. She loves movies too. We watched, you know, since she was a kid. It was funny. At her 16th birthday, we went around the table to all her girlfriends. What's your favorite movie? And it's like, oh, Step Up 2, and I don't know, whatever the movies are. And then with her, it was like Rosemary's Baby. so I raised her watching 2001: A Space Odyssey and Citizen Kane and Planet of the Apes and The Graduate and Rosemary's Baby. And so she knows all that, and you know, great foreign films too. And she has a sense of. Yeah, she watched it and she was like, oh, this is like, she was completely engrossed. She laughed throughout. This is an 18-year-old who could be cynical and could be, you know, contemptuous and dismissive of anything, you know, as a teenager, you know, and she just was completely engrossed and from beginning to end and felt like it was totally engaging and funny and, you know, enjoyable. And there was no, it paces out really nicely, right? You saw
that's
that, right?
the number one thing I was going to say. It's just, and it ends on a beautiful.
Right. So there was no, first of all, she's never seen the original Mask.
She never did?
I don't think she has, but even if she had, it doesn't occupy the imagination the way it did in 1997 when it came out in 1994, whenever it came up. It's a great movie, and it's an unbelievable showcase of Jim Carrey's talents and Cameron Diaz. I mean, that was sort of, and it's a weird movie, but it's great. But it doesn't occupy the pantheon of like what a teenager is watching now and thinks and loves, you know. You go online, look at comments or whatever, what kids are watching. It's like much more contemporary movies. You know? And so it doesn't have as much of an impact to compare it in your mind to that original film as it would have back when the movie came out, right? So we're far enough away from it that you can kind of just consider this thing on its own, right? There are enough people who could watch it and consider it on its own. And she loved it. And there was no love it with caveats. There was no, but I hated this part and I hated that part. Like when you go online and you read comments of what people really disliked about it. There was none of that in her reaction. And, you know, she's pretty straightforward and honest. I mean, she read a script of mine. She said, "Oh, that's well executed." I could tell that it didn't come to life for her, but that it was professionally executed because she said exactly what it was and what it meant. It didn't have a layer of life on top of it. I'm talking about a script a pilot script that I was playing around with, an early draft of it. So her reactions are honest. You know?
And she's 18, but like really 38.
She's 18, but she has the writing talent of a 25-year-old. And I just think, you know, in 5 years, she's way ahead of where I was at her age, way ahead. You know, she's 10 years ahead of where I was, easily. I mean, I actually never wrote a novel, so she's infinitely ahead. But in terms of her talent and her understanding of storytelling and her layering of dramaturgy and, you know, and set pieces, cinematic stuff, and just everything in her writing is at a whole other level, and she's just gonna get better. And as she kind of hones her craft and in school and writes more, she has another novel she's working on.
The fact that she gave it a good review.
Yeah, and I look at her as a counterpart, like as a fellow artist,
creative contemporary.
Yeah, I don't look at her as my daughter. I mean, when I read the first 60 pages of her novel, like a year and a half ago, I suddenly, first of all, that's as much as she had, and I was like, I got to find out what's going to happen. And as soon as I knew I had to find out what's going to happen, I knew she had something there, right? That is not easy to do, to sit down and write 60 pages and make people want to turn to the next page, which doesn't exist yet. That is, as you know, from the point of view of an artist, that's really hard. And she really achieved it. And I looked at her, you know, her previous novels she wrote, and in the beginning, the opening worked, and she wrote like 120 pages of that. And about 20 pages in, I was like, okay, you're trying to do too much. And I wasn't tracking it anymore, and I wasn't engaged, and I didn't read the rest of it. And she decided, you know what, I'm not going to rewrite this. I'm going to write it something new. And she took what she had assimilated and learned from the writing of the first one, and she put it into her second novel. And that's the one where I just had to keep reading. And so then I knew I looked at her in a different way. I looked at her as a fellow artist and a writer, and would go to her for her opinion on stuff. For her honest opinion. We'd watch movies together. We found that something that would resonate for me would resonate for her. You know, not always. I mean, it wasn't always the same thing, but the point is she always had a deep rationale and a thoughtful rationale about, I mean, it took her sometimes a little time to think about what was working, but then she always had a thoughtful rationale about it. And she has a great ear for dialogue. Her descriptiveness is incredible. She loves words and wordplay in a way that I never did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of her favorite things is she memorized the first page of Finnegan's Wake, which is a James Joyce novel, which is, you know, practically gobbledygook, right? Like Irish gobbledygook. and so she's really got an attention to words, but she also, I mean, she sewed costumes for the films she made. She designed them and sewed them for the films she made. She composed the music she played on the piano for the film she made in school growing up. So she kind of brings all these different worlds together and skills together, and her writing is impressive. So we watched this, and she watched some movies this summer. She really liked the movie Pig, by the way, which I haven't seen.
I have to watch it.
It's supposed to be really good.
Yeah.
With Nick Cage. But she watched it, and I was there, and I could see her reacting to things where I knew they didn't play in the original movie, but they played here because of the setup and the payoff and so forth. And she's thought it was really good. And I was like, well, this is great because that's the audience.
And she's a high-minded person.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is I was thinking about this. If the movie had been released the way we wanted, I believe we would have been up for some special effects awards.
Yeah, that too.
The set deck, at least.
Yeah.
Special effects, at least. Like, just that, like...
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah. Cats and Dogs was in the bake-off. So... Back then, there were only 3 nominees for visual effects.
Mm-hmm. Visual effects. For
and they had a bake-off of the top 5 or top 7.
A bake-off?
Yeah, so they had a visual effects. They called it a bake-off because they had they would vote at the visual effects branch of the Academy. And there were 7, including Cats and Dogs. And the votes came in, and Cats and Dogs came in at number 4, but they only picked 3. But now they pick 5. So Cats and Dogs would have been nominated, and I agree with you. That would have happened with Son of the Mask. I mean, there was all Cinefex magazine, famous magazine that covers visual effects. There was a whole piece.
There was a whole piece about it, and that and The Aviator.
Yeah,
we came out the
that
same.
And The Aviator.
Yeah,
that's right. At the same.
That and The Aviator.
Right.
Exactly. Larry, you got to come back, and then we're gonna really dive.
All right. Cool.
Thank you, buddy.
Yep. You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.